What's up, everybody? Good evening. Welcome to Fireside Chat with Tawana. Of course, it's about that time of the year where we get to talk to some of our honorees and get to learn a little bit more about them. Tonight, I have the absolute pleasure of speaking to one of our honorees. Before I bring tonight's honoree in, you guys should already know who it is, but let me just share a little bit about this particular award. So tonight we're going to be talking to Sasha Renee. The She's going to be the recipient of the Keesha Monique Codling Confidence Award. Woohoo! So just a little bit about this particular award. This award was named after my late sister, Keesha Monique Codling. And the award itself, we had this award before her passing, but we just kind of named it after. It was always called the Confidence Award. So this award always goes to one deserving person who embodies confidence in their everyday life and in and out of the industry in their professional life, and always willing to help others. But let me just do this real quick before I bring in Sasha. I hope that you guys are already saving the date. November 2nd, 2024 is going to be the award ceremony. We have six honorees and I think about 12 or 14 different category awards. So if you have not gotten your tickets, make sure you get your tickets. Theffias.com, THEFFIAS.com. Tickets are on sale today. We do have room blocks available on our website with a direct link. So if you are traveling and you need some discounted rooms, make sure you book those before they are all gone. Now, I'm I have kept you guys waiting long enough. Let me bring in our fabulous guest, Sasha.
Hey,
I wasn't, listen, I'm never ready to talk to you because you just come full glam all the time. And look at me.
well, listen, I gotta come correct. So, first of all, how's the audio? Are we good?
We are good. We live, baby, huh? We
Okay,
good. They hear you
because
loud and clear.
because the fans in my living room here are working overtime. I got two fans going right now to stay cool.
I hear that. Don't worry. We don't hear anything. We just hear you.
All right,
What is
good.
going on?
Oh, too much, but I'm blessed and highly favored, as they say.
I love it. I love it. So, you guys, Sasha is an activist, performer, educator, musician, traveler, and so much more. I do want to say congratulations once again on, being the recipient of this award this year. You and I have spoken about this award at great lengths. So I will ask you, what does it mean to receive this award this year?
Well, first, Tawana, thanks for having me tonight, and also thanks to you and the rest of the Fires committee and crew for deciding to bestow this honor upon me this year. Um, the award means so much for different reasons. One, because it's named after your late sister, and I know how important and special she was to you and to um, many others in the industry. And I really appreciate that you normally wear a pendant around your neck that commemorates her. Um, and to be honored really for me is special because um, it speaks about not just confidence, but walking in your purpose, walking in your truth, supporting others, and more importantly, letting your light shine. I believe that everyone has something to offer, everyone has a story. And when you are given a platform or a microphone or the opportunity to share your story, it shouldn't be just about yourself, but it should be about how you can uplift others. So
Right.
I really see that in this confidence award that's being bestowed upon me as a way to give me my flowers. And I really appreciate that because I'm not one to do things for recognition or for the accolades, but it does feel humbling But also it does feel good, I must admit, because every now and then it is good to stop, take inventory, and look at the things that you've done and the people that you've connected with, the people you vibe with, and the people that you've uplifted along the way. And so many of us are just so busy with work, and we're work rats, and we just put our heads down and work, 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 work. We don't actually
Mhm.
take the time to enjoy the journey or the process of what we're going through.
True, true. And I will definitely co-sign on that. You never do anything, just for accolades. Like you show up for this industry, but we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Let's not push the fast forward button here.
Okay.
Okay. So you talked about support, and you have been supporting All Things Plus for well over a decade. And we appreciate you for that. That, and I have to say this. You have also received an award from Full Figure Fashion Week. As and that was an important moment for me because I really got to know who Sasha was. I mean, they did it justice. I think was it Vanessa that presented.
Yeah.
It was Vanessa. They did an amazing job in just really explaining why you were so deserving of that award and all the things that you do. You really show up for, I don't want to say the industry, you show up for people. It's not just because these are industry events. It just happens to be industry events, but you really do show up for people, and I see that in you. So, a big thank you to you for that. But can you share a moment where you felt the most impactful in spreading the message of body positivity?
Um, wow. To pick one moment is difficult,
I
but
know.
there are a few. Um, I would say one happened 2 years ago
Mm-hmm.
where there was a town in Westchester County that was having Pride for the very first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I went there on behalf of Drag Story Hour. Um, Shout out to Angel Electra and Shady Pines and the Westchester County chapter of Drag Story Hour. They were the ones who said, "Hey, Sasha, can you go do this gig? This town is having Pride for the first time ever, and they would love for a Drag Story Hour."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Sure, I would love to do that, but I also would love to do a Q&A with the young people that are coming to hear me read and with anybody in the audience." And so I read some books, some children's books, and did a Q&A, took some pictures. And then afterwards, I was kind of just hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
A woman approached me and said, my daughter is in love with you, but she's really, really nervous about coming to talk to you. Would you mind coming over and speaking with her? And I was like,
Okay, we lost Sasha for a minute, but she's gonna come back and finish that story. Technology. I want to say I say this probably every day. Technology will get us each and every time, but no worries. We have her right back.
"We're back.
Yes, we're
What's
gonna
going
pick
on?"
up where we left off.
All right. So we went the story with me approaching the child. I kneeled down and I said, "Hi, what's your name?" And all of a sudden, bloop, like she just started rattling and rambling and talking and, "Oh my God, I love your makeup," and it was interesting. And she was like, "Can we please take a picture?" And I was like, "Of course." And what happened was while I was taking a knee and talking to her kind of face to face,
Hmm.
someone took a candid picture that just captured the joy in this child's eyes. And the mother came up to me afterwards and was like, "That is the most that my child has talked in months."
Wow.
And I was like, wow. She was like, "You just opened up a whole world of creativity for her. And thank you so much." And then a young teenager came up to me and said, "I really love the way you carry yourself. You're not unapologetic. I mean, you're not apologetic. You're not ashamed of, your size. And you really inspired me to be more confident in how I carry myself." And this was a teenager that was on the plus size. end of things. So she talked about how she, sometimes gets bullied and has to deal with, cyber bullies and people making memes about her and sending her nasty DMs and nasty
Mm.
texts. But for her to just say, "Oh my God, I see you and thank you for giving me the inspiration to carry on," meant a lot. And
Wow.
that was kind of one of those moments. Is I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting kind of just to go and do a drag story hour, but I didn't realize the impact that it was going to have on that young 5-year old and then on that teenager. And then I would say another moment that really stands out for me has been really the love and the support from people in the plus size industry. I remember years ago I attended Jeannie Ferguson's runway class, her modeling class, and there were some women there who were really timid, really shy, and we were like, "Girl, just open up." They were like, "I'm afraid I'm gonna fall. I'm afraid I'm gonna trip on my heels." I'm like, "Well, it's better that you do it here in this class rather than on a runway. So let's get after it." And we had a blast that afternoon. We learned so much from Jeannie and from each other and just supporting each other. And they were like, "We really appreciate you coming out and just," and I'm out there in leggings with them and 5-inch heels and strutting and kikiing. And I think that sometimes we get in our own way. We think the worst about ourselves and we think that everyone is going to think X, Y, and Z about us.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not even true. Sometimes we are blocking our own blessings or we're blocking our own opportunities because we're so concerned and worried about what everyone else is going to think or how everyone else is going to treat us or what everyone else is going to say.
Right.
But at that moment, it just became one of those, "Yo, let's throw caution to the wind, forget about it. Let's just have fun and let's go do our thing." And we had a blast at that in that class. And I think that um, the ladies that were in that class with me really, it was almost like a sisterhood of sorts at one point. And I know in some moments in the industry there can be some shade and there can be some
Yeah.
animosity, but there was none of that that day. There was all support for each other, and I thought that was really cool.
I love that. When we can touch the children or the younger generation that's coming up, then we're doing our job.
Yeah.
So good for you on that. Um, you talked about drag, so let's go there. So as an ambassador, and this question is very timely right now and important right now. As an ambassador for the Drag the Vote, can you tell us more about this initiative? This is a
Yes.
two-part question,
Okay.
right? The second part of this question is what's the most creative and fun way that you've encouraged people to vote? That's the
Wow.
two-part question.
Okay. Cool. So, Drag Out the Vote is a nonprofit organization that really tries to work with helping people get the resources. Sorry, let me take off this earring. Um,
Okay.
get the resources that they need in order to be able to vote. So, we really promote voter registration because since the 2020 election, there have been over 500 proposals, 75 of which have actually gone into law that prohibit people from registering to vote. So we make sure that we connect people with the services that are available to them so that they can have the proper documentation and to vote, and that they're aware of their local polling locations and making sure that they know all of the rules so that when they show up to vote, they're not turned away either because of inaccurate documentation, um, lack of proper ID, or intimidation, because these are all tactics that people have used to try to stop people from voting.
Right.
And
Right.
so we've partnered with a couple of other organizations to promote voter registration. On my Instagram page, you'll probably see two. We did one with When We All Vote, which was an initiative started by Michelle Obama. We just did a promo for that. And then we did another promo earlier in June during Pride Month to really promote
Hmm.
voter registration and make sure that everyone gets out and votes. Because everyone is thinking that the presidential election in November is the most important election. It
Right.
is an important election. However, people often overlook your local elections, which tend to be more important because your local officials that you vote into office are the ones who really have more of a say in your day-to-day life and where your taxes and your money is going and what local laws will go into effect.
Right.
And people often overlook that.
True.
And
Thank you for saying that.
And so, yes, absolutely. So, you should know what district you live in. You should know who your city council person is. You should know who your alderman or alder person is. You should know where in your neighborhood you should go to vote or where your
Right.
polling sites are. You should be aware of the dates of your election, including the early election dates to go. I tend to vote early because I know that on election day, things can get really crazy and things
Yes.
can get out of hand. So if I am able to vote early, I do try to take advantage of that. And then the second part of your question was, what is the most creative way
Yes.
I've gotten people, what is it, to vote or you mean to register to vote?
But let's go both.
Um, so I'm actually working on an initiative right now with Drag Out the Vote because actually, let me pull my trusty notes aside here. I took some notes. Um, National Voter Registration Day is on Tuesday, September 17th this year. And so I'm working on an initiative with a ton of drag queens from across the country, many of whom are drag ambassadors for Drag Out the Vote as well. And we're trying to really promote voter registration. I've actually done things at shows where I've hosted or I've performed and have asked people to, if they show me their voter registration card or proof that they can vote, I'd buy them, a free drink or a round of drinks.
Nice.
I did a show where once it was, hey, there's a cover fee, but if you show proof of registration to vote, or if you register to vote at the door, then you don't have to pay the cover. Um,
Oh,
and that was really cool to reach out to people because some people are like, oh, my vote doesn't matter, or oh, it doesn't matter anyway. They're just gonna rig the election, and we're like, no, everyone needs to come out to the polls. And I also explained to, especially people of color, especially Black people, we take this civil liberty such for granted,
yes.
whereas generations before, people literally fought and died for the right to vote.
Hmm.
My parents used to tell me about how they're from the South, how, my grandparents got turned away from the polling locations because they asked questions like, how many bubbles are in a bar of soap? And asked all kind of crazy questions to deter people from voting and to deny
Wow.
them the right to vote. So, many people now take it for granted, but many people did not have this luxury or this ability, 50 years ago, 50, 60 years ago.
True. Very true. I love that. I love the initiative. So that just reminds me anytime I come to a show of yours, just, make sure I have that in my pocket.
You got to have something. I do all kinds of crazy things, ask all kinds of funny questions.
Yes. I love that. So what made you get into drag?
Oh, man. Funny story. Not really a funny story, but when I was younger, I was always creative. I always had a creative mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I always used to love dressing up as my favorite cartoon characters, superheroes. They call it cosplay now, but
Right.
back then it didn't really have a name. I would take a towel and some clothespins or some safety pins and pin it to my shirt and became a superhero, right? Running around the house, right? Jumping off of furniture thinking I could fly, all kinds of things. And I grew up in a very religious household. So I was in church a whole lot. And I used to be thrown in front of the congregation a lot to be put on display to recite books of the Bible, recite Bible verses, and then I learned how to play instruments, so I had to play in front of big congregations and things of that nature. And that kept stayed with me through high school, and then I just started fooling around in drag like on Halloween. It was like prank drag, like it wasn't anything glamorous. Think like Medea. It was like Medea style drag, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was just fun for Halloween. Didn't think much of it. Then in college, started to get involved with doing makeup a lot more. in the theater department and things of that nature and Halloween. And then they asked me to be in my college's first ever drag show my senior year. And
Mm.
my very first performance, my debut performance in drag, and these people by now had seen me play in the jazz band, sing in the chorale, play in the funk band, play on multiple teams for the college. So I was used to being in front of crowds, but
Mm.
not dressed as a female. Um, my first ever drag performance in front of a crowd was in front of 1,100 people
Oh boy.
at my college. And it was friends, professors, people from the local town.
Oh boy.
Needless to say, I was nervous as hell. I was terrified, but it went really well. And I met a local performer who invited me to come to one of their community theater performances. They were putting on Hedwig and the Angry Inch. So went to the performance. There I met some other performers and they invited me to come down to perform in their amateur shows. And they were like, hey, come on down. We want to see what you can do on stage. And it was fun. And then a little down the road, I really started performing in the Boston area. And shout out to all the people from the Randolph Country Club who really gave me a platform to really hone my craft and my skill as a drag performer. And they started inviting me to be a special guest in their monthly show, be on that float for Boston Pride, to do charity events with them. And it kind of just snowballed from there. And people started reaching out to me. And this was well before social media was a big thing. So we basically had, video clips every now and then, MySpace and YouTube. No Instagram, there was no TikTok, there was no Snapchat. It was like you had to go and see the girls in person. And luckily, I was surrounded by a good group of people that really just showed me the ropes.
Wow. And the rest is history, huh?
The rest is history.
What would you say, if you had to think of one? What would be your most memorable show?
Ooh, you're throwing the hard questions out at me. Okay, I hate to say this, but there's two that come to mind.
Okay, so let's do two.
Okay, the first was the first time I performed in the Boston area. It was at the Randolph Country Club's um, annual lip sync competition, and it was always around Columbus Day weekend. Um, and they were like, "You should come and perform." I went and performed. There were 21 contestants, and there was a panel of judges, and there was also a huge crowd. And so obviously crowd applause would also kind of influence the judging. And so a lot of people brought a lot of their friends. I didn't bring anybody. I performed. I came in 18th out of 21.
Mm.
And so I was devastated. I was like, this is horrible. Like, I never want to show my face at this club again. Like, everyone's going to be like, who was that horrible chick that performed? And I wound up getting a phone call a week later. And they called me and said, we actually thought you did very well. You had a great performance. I'm like, well, then why did I finish in 18th? They're like, you have to understand that there were a lot of people there who brought a lot of friends and family to cheer for them. There were some people who had performed in that competition for a couple of years in a row who hadn't placed. And they were like, quite honestly, nobody knew who you were. You just showed up and they was like, who is this chick? Is she even local? Who are you? And so they were like, don't take it personally. That was actually my first taste of understanding what politics could be like in an industry.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, okay. And they said, but you were such a great performer. We actually want to invite you to be a special guest in our monthly show.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yes, I would love to. So that was one. And I think the other moment was I've had the opportunity to travel a lot throughout this country and to other countries to perform in drag. But it was Christmas of 2019. I actually was in Hawaii, in Honolulu, at Club Scarlet, and I had the opportunity to be the opening act for Eureka O'Hara from RuPaul's Drag Race.
Oh,
Um, Eureka is super sweet. She had said, "Hey, Sash, I'm going to be in Hawaii." I was like, "Hey, I'm going to come to Hawaii and hang out and all that." She's like, "If you come to Hawaii, I would love for you to open for me." And I opened for her, had a blast. It was a wonderful experience. Had a great few days in Hawaii. Little did I know that a few months afterwards, we were going to have our global pandemic,
right.
the global shutdown. So, and it was crazy because I was in Hawaii for Christmas. I came back home for 10 hours, swapped out my luggage, went back to the airport, and flew to Brazil.
Mm,
And was out in Brazil and broke in 2019 coming into 2020 in Brazil.
wow.
So those are two of like my most memorable kind of performances.
Wow.
The birth of Sasha coming in 18th out of 21st, 18th out of 21 contestants. And then, 2019 being able to perform and it was just, the vibe was electric um, at that club in Honolulu. And just opening for Eureka, who was such a star and so great. And she did not let the stardom from her being on Drag Race and everything get to her head. She was so kind and gracious and sweet. It was a great experience.
Nice. Congrats on that. So, Sasha, where did the name come from?
Okay, so the short name is Sasha Renee.
Mm-hmm.
Some people also call me the Glamazon. And I'll tell you about the Glamazon part in a little bit. But the full name actually is Sasha Ebony Concepcion Renee. Sasha, because I love the name Sasha. I always thought it was a sassy name. But my nickname growing up was Shasha. And I have 4 nephews and a niece. When my niece was younger and she was learning how to talk, she would call me Uncle Shasha. And one day she fumbled on her words and called me Uncle Sasha. And so I was like, Sasha's kind of cute. Let's rock with that.
Wow.
The Ebony is because my parents actually thought, this is before the days of sonograms and knowing what you were going to have ahead of time. My parents thought I was actually going to be a girl, and they were preparing to have a baby girl. And so if I had been born a girl, they were going to name me Ebony.
Mm.
Concepcion is because it means birth and in Spanish, and it's one of the languages that I speak. So had to throw a little Latin flavor in there. And then Renee, I've always loved the name Renee, but the name Renee means rebirth or reborn. So it's Sasha Renee. And the Glamazon came about because in like 2003, I used to
Mm-hmm.
go from 2003 to like 2008, 2009. I used to go down to Florida about 4 times a year. And I would perform down there for 3, 4, sometimes even 5 nights in a row. But I used to go around with a group of friends, Misty Eyes, Lady Rumel, and Alexis De La Mere. And we were all plus size big girls. We were all over 6 feet tall and over 200 pounds. So anytime we walked into a club, it was like, a record scratch. When you walk into in like a movie, you walk in here, and like everyone
Uh-huh.
turns and looks at us, and they're like, "Who are these huge, big, glamorous women?" So we just started going by the Glamazons. We were the Glamazons. This was before RuPaul started using the term Glamazon. This is before the music group was out, the Glamazons, for a while. And then the name just started sticking with me. People just started calling me the Glamazon. So Sasha, the Glamazon Renee. And it just kind of sticks. I've always, early in my career, I thought about changing my name
Mm-hmm.
to having something that was like a play on words. I have some friends that are performers. One, her name is Polly, last name Esther, Polyester. Um, uh, Another queen that I used to perform with in Massachusetts, her name was Anita Cocktail. So Anita Cocktail. So I was thinking about trying to go with one of those names that was a pun, but Sasha Renee caught on, and it was too late to change it. The Sasha Renee train kind of took off.
Yeah, I can see that. I can't see you being anything other than Sasha Renee.
Really?
It's just
Wow.
it just fits you. It fits you. And true story, when I was growing up, I've always hated my name. I
Really?
hated the name Tawana. I did not like it.
Wow.
And I vowed when I turned 18 that I was going to change my name. I could not wait to turn 18. Change my name. And I was going to change my name to Ebony.
Really?
I really was.
Wow.
I was going to change my name.
Look at that. We are ebony
But
sisters.
by the time I got to 18, I was like, you know what? We just going to stick with Tawana. So, but
Okay.
yeah, my name, I was going to legally change my name to Ebony.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. But you talked about the languages you speak, right? And so extremely impressed on that. Ashley, don't laugh at me. Now going forward, Ashley gonna probably start calling me Ebony. Um,
See, I can't see what people are saying because I'm in like, on this other platform. So I don't see what everyone's saying.
oh, there's a
I see it. I see it now.
okay, okay,
Hey,
good.
Ashley. I love me some Ashley Walker.
Hey D. So I, through you, I learned a new word, polyglot. I never even heard of it. I was like, I had to Google. I was like, what does that even mean? So now let's talk about how many languages do you actually speak?
Okay.
Because this is impressive.
So I speak 6. I only studied 2. Like officially studied 2. But I speak 6.
Which six are they?
Hopefully English. Spanish, um, French, Turkish, Arabic, and Polish.
How? Why?
Um, through my travels, I feel like I've lived a million lives.
Okay.
Growing up in New York City, I grew up in a very multicultural area. And so I heard English, Spanish, French, and Arabic on a regular basis.
Mm,
English, obviously, is my native language. Spanish, because I grew up with a lot of Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Panamanians, Cubans in my neighborhood. And you embrace that culture. When your friends are speaking languages, you pick it up, right? Like
yeah.
we used to walk to school sometimes, and on the way home in the afternoon, we walk, and all of a sudden, my friends would be like, "Ahora!" And then all of a sudden, they will run and jump on the bus and leave me, and I'd be like coming back to the block a little bit later on, and then all of a sudden, I caught on, ahora meant now. All of a sudden, they're running for the bus, and they look, and I'm running neck and neck with them. And they're like, "Oh, he's catching on! He's catching on!" And hearing all the songs in the neighborhood. That's how I started really picking up, a lot of different slang terms and working on my accent. My mom used to speak French to my brother and I because she worked in the hospital system and
Mm,
she had to speak with people from so many different nationalities. And she had studied French in school. I didn't really gravitate towards French because I just didn't hear it enough.
mm-hmm.
And then the local community center where I grew up was actually run by the Nation of Islam. So I used to hear Arabic all the time. And the spot, we didn't even call it the community center. We used to call it the Muz, for sure, for the Muslim spot. We used to call it the Muz. You going to go play ball at the Muz? Like, yeah, I was at the Muz. And so just started picking up Arabic there. And then when I got to high school, officially started taking Spanish classes because I was like, listen, I want to be able to speak when I get back home. And I kind of already know how to speak. So maybe this class won't be that hard. And so it was really about learning how to read and write at that point
Mm,
because I knew what the sounds sounded like.
mm-hmm.
Um, and then I picked up Turkish in college because some friends of mine were from Istanbul who lived in the Boston area. And they're like, well, if you speak Arabic, you need to learn how to speak Turkish. And then when I studied abroad in college and I was playing basketball, one of my roommates, who was one of my teammates, was from Poland. So he started teaching me how to speak Polish. And of course, when you learn how to speak a language, some of the first words you learn are the swears and all the slang terms.
Becky.
So that's that.
And I say Becky because Becky dropped a comment
I
And
see.
yeah, she said I had trouble learning just Spanish even after 6 years in middle school and high school. I can tell you the swear words from watching Netflix.
See, there it is. Swear word. See, I'm telling you, you learn the swears and all the slang terms first, and then you
Yes,
start to actually learn how to have a cohesive conversation.
facts.
Like you know
Facts.
how to sing songs. You like, are you sure you know what you're singing about?
Speaking of which, I remember when I was younger, I wanted to learn how to speak Spanish, right? And so my aunt and I was like, okay, we're gonna learn Spanish together, right? And so it was Wednesday. Every Wednesday, we would speak to each other in Spanish. Okay, I think we developed our own language because I don't think that we were speaking Spanish. It was fun. I know a lot of Spanish words. I can't form complete sentences, but if somebody's talking to me, depending on what they say, I can kind of piece together what they're saying
Yeah.
from that experience growing up. So so good evening to everybody who recently joined the chat. So we talked about your languages, how many languages you speak. I mean, and that is so impressive. So how long have you been an educator? Tell us
Ooh.
more about that, because I mean you're extremely smart. We can see that.
I wouldn't even say smart. I would say just my parents really encouraged me to try new things. They were like, never say no to something without giving it a try.
No, you're smart.
It just so happened, it just so happened that everything I tried, I liked, so I wanted to stick with it. Right? Tried different instruments in church and tried different languages and tried traveling and all of that, and it just stuck with me. But the education piece came about. I can't even take credit for it. I was in high school and I went to an elite boarding school. And when you graduate, the whole faculty lines up and you shake their hands as you leave. Basically, they congratulate you. You got your diploma and all of that. And the last people's hands you shake are the headmaster or the head of school and his wife. And he shook my hand and he looked me dead in the eye and said, "I would love for you to come back and teach here one day." And
Wow.
I was like, yeah, right. I'm 16, 17 years old. Like, you're just saying that to be nice. Like, I'll get my diploma and peace out. Maybe I'll come back for like homecoming or alumni weekend or whatever. And he was like, no, you've got something special. You work really well with kids. I've seen you babysit kids all around campus, and like faculty kids and kids love you. You just have an ability to connect with them. And I was thinking it was probably because I act like a kid so much. They like just appreciate someone who doesn't take themselves too seriously.
Mm.
And he followed me all through college. Um, and then had me come while I was in college, come back and teach summer school for 2 years. 1 year was in an administrative role, being the assistant athletic director and teaching one class, one language class. And then the following year, they had me just, my whole responsibility was teaching language courses. And they were like, so at least you know what teaching is like. So when you graduate, if you don't like it, you can, say, hey, I gave it a shot.
Right.
Um, and so out of college, I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. Like, I'm ready to live La Vida Loca. I'm ready to, resume an athletic career and go back overseas and everything. And he had every single one of like my favorite teachers call me and say, hey,
Mm.
you should come back and teach here. And I was like, I don't know. I'm kind of like loving living this European life and all of that. And then I thought about my experience in high school, and I was like, this is an opportunity for me to really touch the lives of some young people, especially young people of color,
Yeah.
because it was a predominantly white institution. And also, I thought it was an opportunity to kind of help break the cycle of some of the traumatic things that happen to people of color in predominantly white institutions and PWIs. So, decided to go back. I was only supposed to go back for 2 years, and was like, okay, once I'm done with that, I'll go back overseas and live La Vida Loca and teach salsa and be a bouncer and do some drag and play sports until my body gives out. Um, but after 2 years, he decided to retire, and I was like, okay, cool, we're gonna dance off into the sunset together. And then I got convinced to stay for another 2 years, and here I am now. This past June, I just finished my 22nd year as an educator, teaching foreign languages in high school, and my 7th year as an administrator.
Wow. Wow.
Yes,
How
it's kind
about
of crazy.
that?
It's kind of crazy. Unfortunately, that the headmaster, the head of school, that he told me one day, he was like, "You're gonna be an administrator and you're gonna be a head of school if you want." He passed away a few years ago,
My
and it's
condolences.
crazy that everything he said has been coming to fruition. It's crazy. And I'm like, you saw this in a 17-year-old. It's like
Yes.
freaky.
Yes.
It's really freaky. And his wife is still alive, so I'm in touch with her every now and then. And it's just like, wow. She was like, he loved you. He saw so much in you when you were young. And of course, I was like, I was young. I didn't see any of that in myself. My 10th grade chemistry teacher told me I was going to come back and teach one day. And I laughed him out the building. I told him it was the funniest thing I had ever heard because I was a horrible science student. And I was like, you just told me that? That man, you must be senile. I was like, you should retire like tomorrow, sir. And ironically, he was the dean of faculty when I came back and started teaching.
How about that?
Yeah. He was like, see, I told you.
But I have to agree with Becky. She said your career life is very impressive, and absolutely, you have been on since we started the fires. You have, and we joked about this because you, as an honoree this year, our honorees don't come back and they don't do work. You just get to come and enjoy the show. So, we talked about, you said, oh, my streak as a presenter is going to come to an end.
I know.
You have been a presenter for the fire since we started in 2019. That is crazy. You're
Yeah.
an honoree. And honestly, truthfully, when I started the fires, um again, we had the confidence award already. It just wasn't named after my sister, so the name didn't change. We just added her name to it. And that year, we had to sit down and we had to come up with the list of our honorees for the next 10 years. That's what we had to do. 10 years. And we had, I think at the time we had five. We added one a couple of years ago, but we had to come up with 10 years of names. And your name has always been on the list, right? It's just timing for everybody. And I was like, okay, this year it's going to be Sasha this year. And everybody was just like, okay, great choice. Let's do it. So, I'm glad that you said yes. Everybody, this award obviously is very personal to me. So everyone that I choose, no one gets to choose. This is the only award that I personally get to choose who receives it, and so that is something that I want people to understand. It's not just, I don't want people to think, oh, you remind me of my sister, I'm going to give you an award. It is not that. It is, my sister was, when I tell you, every day of her life, she embodied confidence, not just how she looked, not just how she carried herself, but she cared so much for people, right? She was tough, tough as nails. Um, and I used to always say, "Oh my gosh, my sister is the meanest person walking this earth." But that's that sisterly love, right? But she would, honestly and truly, she just helps people. She used to help people every day. I mean, you go to her house and she got a house full of kids. Like, whose kids do you have today? Like,
Yeah.
and she was just good like that. So when I choose people for this particular award, I'm looking for people who are giving back, using their platform to help other people. Not you just walking around, you looking cute in your heels or whatever it is that you decide to wear, because it's not just for women. Um, so it is personal for me, and you were definitely one of those people that I had to choose. It had to be Sasha. Sasha can get any award. We can put her on another award list, but next year. But this is it for you, and you're so deserving of this. And thank you for saying yes. Now, okay, back to
Well,
the questions.
thank you for saying that. That means so much.
Absolutely.
I
And
appreciate that.
I will never forget when I decided that one year I decided that I was going to make a contribution to the cancer center, right? You were, you came to me, I mean, and you didn't have to do this. You came to me and you was like, whatever you give, I'm going to match. And that was just everything to me. I was like, you've never met my sister a day in your life, but you embody so many of the characteristics. Like, you're extremely caring, you're extremely supportive, you're extremely smart. And I really and truly appreciate you just being in my life. So, just continue being great. Let's get back to the questions, but let's start with the waterfalls. So, do your worlds ever collide, the drag and your being an educator?
Um, Early in my teaching career, no. I mean, a couple of times on Halloween, yeah, I dressed up in drag and taught classes or whatever, but that was it. It never really collided. I did makeup for the theater department when I went back and taught at my old high school for a couple of musical productions. And it was funny because they were like, wait a minute, the football slash basketball slash track coach slash dorm parent is coming to do my makeup. Like, what does he know about makeup? And then when I showed up with a beat face and everything, they're like, "Ooh, okay, yes, he could do my makeup." And it really wasn't. I really tried to keep it separate for quite a while, right? Especially when you work in education, you keep your personal life separate from your personal life separate from your professional life.
Right.
Um, Especially because you're working with minors, and the last thing you want is to be accused of any inappropriateness or anything. So, kept it separate. But in the current institution that I'm in, um, they have really been supportive. And in 2018, a bunch of schools here in New York got together and got a float in the Pride March. And a buddy of mine was in charge of it, and he was like, "Hey, you want to come through, help us out with stuff? You know the DJ, and why don't you come and help?" I was like, "All right, cool." So he gave me the microphone to just kind of warm up the crowd while he was handing out bracelets and making sure that everyone was signed up and registered and all that. And the float started moving, and he's like, "Stay on the mic, stay on the mic." So I wound up emceeing the whole parade. And it went over so well. They were like, "Can you be the MC again next year?" And I was like, "Well, next year, 2019, is going to be World Pride in New York. So we got to go big or go home."
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, "What?" And I was like, "Don't worry, y'all will see." And so, behind the scenes, I talked to my buddy who was in charge of float. And I was like, "Yo, I'm gonna come and drag. Sasha's gonna come and MC the float." And he was like, "Okay." And I showed up, and people gagged. They fell out. We had a blast. And so ever since then, um, well, 2020, we obviously didn't have the march because of COVID. I didn't do it in 2021. But 2022, 2023, and just this past June, I was the MC on a float for a group of private schools that got together and had a float. And so that's been kind of where my worlds collide with them. And if you walk into my office at school, I have flags up from all the languages that I teach. I have signs that say all are welcome. I have a progress flag hanging up. And then there are two pictures from me from 2019 at World Pride hanging in my office. So that when students walk in and they see that I'm just not like a disciplinarian or a mean administrator, but that I'm actually multi-layered and I'm a human as well. So that's kind of, yeah, it's been kind of cool for my drag to actually kind of dovetail with my educational career. I've also done presentations at schools during their diversity symposiums about the history of drag and LGBTIQA plus issues. I identify as an ally, right? So talking about what does allyship look like, right? Especially the performative allyship versus the actual get down in the trenches and do the work, and
Mm-hmm.
the transition from being an ally to being an accomplice to helping people get things done. And then this past June, a school, actually it was in May, had me come in and do a drag makeup class with their students. So that was
Wow.
really cool. So yeah, it's been really cool.
So multi-layered. That is the perfect term for you. Multi-layered. So before we go, um, tell everybody one thing about Sasha Renee that would just shock people to learn about you.
Oh Lord. Um,
I mean, because as if we didn't learn enough about you today.
I know, right? Dang. I don't know. I feel like if you know me, or if you even have a conversation with me, you learn things about me pretty quickly. Like I'm a music junkie, and I work outside of education and music festivals and concert tours. Um, I would say something that a lot of people don't know is that I'm ambidextrous. Um,
I did not know that.
yeah, yeah.
What are
Uh,
you, like a genius or something?
so some of my students will recognize that, like, if I get really, really tired or exhausted and I'm writing on the board, I'll just switch hands. the
Wow.
the penmanship does look different, but they're like, "Oh, he's exhausted if I switch hands."
Wow.
But yeah, so it made it kind of cool for me to play certain sports and certain instruments because I wasn't necessarily dominant on one hand over the other. I exercised the left hand as much as I did the right hand. So
Wow. I mean, I don't even know what to say about you, Sasha. Like, tell everybody where they can follow you and learn more about you. I don't know how much more there is to know about you, but I would be excited to learn.
um, well, I mean, there's a ton of stuff to learn. I just think the biggest thing to know about me is that if you're going to be around me, or
Hmm.
if I'm lucky enough to be in your presence, I really am all about positive vibes and just having a good time and really enjoying the presence of others because
Hmm.
we've lost so many over the past few
Right.
years from COVID and all that. So you know that tomorrow is never necessarily promised. So really take advantage of the time you have with people.
Yep.
And it can be very easy to dwell and permeate on all the negativity and all the bad things that are happening. But if we just spend that time together, enjoying each other and enjoying the moment, like for example, Tawana, I'll see you this weekend in DC.
Yes.
So we'll turn up and have fun and enjoy each other's presence. That's one big thing. But if you want to find me on social media, I am on Instagram and on TikTok at Sasha the Glamazon, which is also posted here underneath my name. And then on Facebook, it's Sasha Renee, Sasha the Glamazon Renee on Facebook. So that is, and I love you too, Ashley. I saw you post.
Well, I appreciate your time. Make sure you guys come out and just support Sasha as she receives her award, her well deserved award on November 2nd. Sasha, thank you for your time.
Thank
Um,
you.
we are going to close out. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure you guys get your tickets, thefias.com. They are on sale now, THEFFIAS.com. The show is scheduled for November 2nd. Same place, the Jamaica Performing Arts Center in Jamaica, Queens. Thank you again, everybody, for tuning in. And we will be talking to another one of our honorees on Monday. So make sure you guys tune in for that as well. It is Fire Chat season for the Full Figure Industry Awards. Good night, everybody.